We live in a world where almost anything we want is one click away. Entertainment, sex, validation, distraction, and yet a lot of us feel strangely unsatisfied, restless, always reaching for the next thing. We crave more stimulation, more novelty, more relief, more pleasure. In today's episode of Unhooked, I'm going to explore why being surrounded by pleasure can actually leave us starving on the inside. And why this isn't a personal failure or a lack of discipline, but a very old human pattern, one that goes back millennia, long before smartphones or porn or mindless doom scrolling ever existed. I'm also going to share what you can do to break free from this cycle of feeling like you never have enough or are never satisfied. So stay tuned. So hey guys, I'm Jeremy Lipkowitz, men's coach, founder of Unhooked Academy, and host of the Unhooked Podcast, the space where we talk about breaking free from compulsive habits like porn and constant distraction, not through shame or willpower, but by understanding what's actually driving craving beneath the surface. We explore deeper psychology and the neuroscience behind desire and dissatisfaction, so you're not just resisting urges, but building a life that no longer needs the escape. If you'd like to support the show, please hit the subscribe button, leave a review, or better yet, share one of these episodes with a friend. It really does mean a lot for a small channel like this to help us grow and reach more people. So in today's episode, we're going to look at an ancient myth that perfectly captures this dynamic of endless wanting and having, but still feeling empty inside, and why understanding this might completely change how you relate to your life. So this episode is actually inspired by something I read recently. I was reading this book, Indistractable by Nir Eyal, and it is such a good book. I will probably decide to do a whole podcast series on the book. But in this book, in the beginning, he was talking about this feeling of an almost constant tug of distraction and dissatisfaction and restlessness. And he describes an ancient Greek myth that perfectly describes this feeling. It's the myth of Tantalus. So very briefly, Tantalus was a mortal. He was a king who was favored by the gods, and he was invited to dine with the gods themselves. Now, there are a few different versions of this myth, but in probably the most famous version of the myth, Tantalus decides to kill his own son and cook him up and serve him to the gods to test their omniscience. Now, the gods see through this plan and punish Tantalus with eternal torment in the underworld. Now, for his punishment, Tantalus is placed in a pool of clear water beneath some branches filled with fruit. And the torment here is that whenever he bends down to drink, the water recedes. And whenever he reaches up to grab some of the fruit, the branches lift out of reach. So he's surrounded by abundance and yet eternally deprived. Now, Nir Eyal, the author of the book, describes it this way. He said his punishment was to yearn for things he desired but could never grasp. So the water was always just out of reach and the fruit was always just out of reach. Now, this is where the word tantalize comes from. We become tantalized by things that we desire, but they're just out of reach. And in this myth, he is tantalized by the fruit and the water, lost in the craving for them, but can never satisfy his hunger or his thirst. Now, if this sounds familiar, it's probably because you've heard me talk about the Buddhist concept of the realm of the hungry ghosts. Now, in Buddhism, hungry ghosts are these beings who are depicted with enormous bellies, these massive bellies and stomachs, and tiny mouths or sometimes narrow throats. So they wander around their existence always hungry and always thirsty, but physiologically incapable of being satisfied. They can never eat enough or drink enough to satisfy their hunger. Now, just like Tantalus, the object of desire is visible. It's right there in front of them, but the conditions of fulfillment are impossible. So they live in that state of perpetual hunger. Now, in both cases, the suffering there is self-perpetuating. The more that one reaches for these things, the more that one focuses on these things, the more that one reinforces that loop of suffering. In both these cases, both with Tantalus and with the hungry ghosts, they're already dead. They don't actually need these things to survive. They could just stop reaching for them and they would be fine. But it's that feeling of, I need to have this thing, that is what causes the suffering. Now, what does this say about craving and suffering? At a psychological and spiritual level, the punishment that Tantalus was given is very precise. It wasn't some random punishment. He wasn't tormented by pain. He was tormented by the craving itself. And that's the core insight here, is that when our desire is activated, when that satisfaction is constantly withheld, that's when we experience that suffering. The torment there is that frustrated wanting, that feeling of hunger and craving. Both traditions point to the same insight about suffering. Suffering doesn't come from lack. It comes from the idea that fulfillment is over there. It comes from this idea that I need this thing in order to be happy. That's the real hell. In Buddhist terms, in Pali or Sanskrit, the term for this is tanha, which is thirst, that feeling of being thirsty or craving or hungry. It's not desire in a healthy sense. There are many healthy desires. Desire is not the enemy. It's that feeling of thirst or craving. I need this thing in order to be happy. Now, in modern language, what this might look like is compulsive, mindless scrolling, consuming porn, chasing validation or novelty or peak experiences, always optimizing and never resting. And just this general feeling like what you have is not enough, that you need something else, you need something new, you need something more. That fruit is always one click away. It's the next video, the next message, the next achievement. Then I'll be happy if I just have a little bit more. That's the craving and the suffering that we experience. So why does this matter? It matters because you are not deprived. You are surrounded by pleasure and by things that bring you stimulation. And yet your nervous system stays agitated because that satisfaction is postponed into an imagined future that never arrives. This feeling that I'll be fulfilled when becomes our perpetual state of being. We never actually learn how to be content or grateful with what we have because we become locked in that autopilot mode of thinking, I'm not good enough yet, I just need a little bit more. Or this thing is not good enough yet, I just need it to be a little bit better. That becomes our relationship with everything. Now, both traditions, both the Buddhist and the ancient Greek myth, they imply the same way out. And it's not through indulgence and trying harder to get these things. It's also not through suppression. It's through release. When you see that craving clearly, it breaks the spell. When you see clearly what's happening, that fruit stops being so seductive. This is why the realm of the hungry ghost is not an actual place. It's a state of mind. And this is why recovery, whether it's framed through Buddhism or psychology, is about learning how to stop reaching for what was never going to truly satisfy you in the first place. So let's make this practical. The goal here is not to get rid of desire. Again, there are healthy desires. The goal here is to catch yourself in the suffering caused by believing that the object of your desire will be the thing that fulfills you. So next time you feel that urge to scroll, to open up a porn website, to check your messages, to distract yourself, try this simple practice. Pause for 10 seconds, do nothing, and then ask yourself this simple question. What am I actually wanting right now? Not the behavior, not the object, not what am I wanting there. It's what am I wanting with the feeling? What do I actually desire? What do I crave for in this? What's the feeling that I'm looking for? Is it relief? Is it connection? Is it validation? Is it just a break from pressure? Now, most of the time you'll notice that something very subtle but very important, you'll notice that the thing that you're chasing won't really fulfill you. Watching more porn, eating that junk food, it's a temporary filling of the void, but it doesn't actually address the thing that you want. And when you can actually name that honestly and be honest with yourself, something will shift. the spell around that will weaken. You will no longer be entranced by the object of your desire. When you see clearly, this thing won't actually lead to my happiness long term, you start to break the trance. So here's a small practice I give to a lot of the men that I work with. Once per day, to intentionally notice a craving before you act on it. And then to pause. Again, it can be something small. Notice the urge to check your phone when you go to the bathroom. Notice the urge to open that next tab. Notice the urge to reach for some quick hit of dopamine. If you can notice that and stay present with it for 30 seconds, feel what it's like to not reach. In that moment, in that gap is where freedom starts to grow. You're teaching your nervous system a new truth here, which is I can feel this impulse. I can notice this urge without obeying it. I don't need to be a slave to this desire. Again, just a reminder, Tantalus wasn't punished with pain. He was trapped in a habit of reaching. Most of us don't need more pleasure. We've got tons of pleasure. We need less chasing. The satisfaction that you really desire, that you really aspire for, that real sense of inner fulfillment and satisfaction, doesn't come from finally getting the fruit. It comes from no longer being compelled to reach for it. It's about opening your eyes and realizing you can walk away from that trap. If this resonates with you, and if you're realizing that your struggle isn't about discipline, but about being stuck in this craving loop, that's exactly what we work on inside the Unhooked Academy. We focus on awareness, nervous system regulation, and identity level change so that you're not fighting these urges, but actually stepping out of the hungry ghost pattern altogether. So if you want to learn more, you can visit unhookedacademy.com. Just so you know, the doors to the program are currently closed, but you can get on the wait list for the next time that we open up. And again, if this was helpful for you in any way, please do consider sharing it with a friend. It really does help the channel grow. All right, folks, that's it for today. Catch you guys on the next episode of Unhooked.